Hi everybody. So we have our development environment for Revit API ready, and we made our custom extension for Revit, which was incredibly easy to do. From now on, we'll be creating a lot of tools together to cover materials of this course. But first of all, let's start by creating a pyRevit template. It will be great for me to explain you everything you should know about pyRevit script anatomy, and by the end of this lesson, you'll have a proper template for your pyRevit scripts. You could just grab my template file, but I would recommend you to watch this whole video so you actually understand about everything inside of it, so you can customize it to your own needs. So let's begin. First of all, let's create a button in our extension, so it's always easily accessible to us. And you already know the process of creating new buttons. I'm going to create pull-down menu in resource panels for my templates. And then we need to create our pyRevit push button. And inside, we need to place a script.py file, and I'll paste an icon for my push button, and don't forget to paste one for pull-down menu as well. And now let's start creating our template file. First of all, I'm gonna add UTF-8 encoding to my script by using this very special syntax. This is necessary if you use unique letters from other languages or some special symbols. If you forget to add it and you have some special characters in your script, you'll get an error like this, so it's always worth to include it. Next, we want to write title and doc for the name and description of our buttons. I'll try to leave a lot of comments so it's easier for beginners to follow the code. I will call my button EF template, and then I'm gonna paste my description example here, where you can write a lot of useful information for users and developers. I include here description, how-to section, last updates to keep track of changes, and also plans for future updates. And that's how it will be shown in Revit UI. Then, optionally, we can place pyRevit meta tags here. Let's open pyRevit developers documentation, and then inside, look for anatomy of R and Python scripts. I'll make it side by side so it's easier to follow. And let's scroll through this page and cover all of them. Right here, it also recommends you to include UTF-8 encoding. Then here is the title for the button's name, and we also have an option to provide different names for different Revit languages. And you can see a list of languages abbreviations on the screen if you need it. Then, same as title, we can write description in multiple languages. Then we can include single or multiple authors of the script if you want to see it in the button's description, but I like to keep my name inside of description. Then the next one is very useful. We can provide any link to a website or path to a file, and it will be open when we hover over the button and click on F1. I'll paste here a special link for the most curious ones. You can check it out. Then we can limit our script to certain Revit versions using these meta tags. And it's very useful when you want to use Revit API classes and methods which are not available in older versions and you want to avoid errors. Then the next one will hide your button from Revit UI. But I would recommend you to create a separate extension for your development and only bring complete tools to the actual toolbar. Then the next, we can highlight our buttons as new or updated. It will look like this in Revit UI and you can draw extra attention from your users. The next is context, and it's great when your tools are made for specific views or certain elements have to be selected before you run the button. You can see right here it even has its own bundle context page with more examples. We'll go through it in a moment, but first let's finish this page quickly. I'll copy paste this example for now, and it will make this button accessible only if you have selection and your active view is a section. Then after that, we have special tags for pyRevit engine configurations. If you're just beginner, ignore all of these settings. And lastly, right here we have a list of all available packages that come with pyRevit by default. It's good to have a glance to know what is easily accessible in your code. So now let's come back to context bundles and see what else is possible to write in our context. Let's scroll to the category context and look at the example. You'll notice that the syntax will be different because it's made for bundle.yaml file. So this file is not only used for ordering your buttons, but also we can provide any of pyRevit's meta tags inside of them, including title, description, and all the others. I'll demonstrate you in a moment how to use it, but first let's learn how to use them in our Python file. Here it says that we can provide any category name or built-in name. So in Python file, we could just create a list and then write all category names inside of it. Then this button will be only activated if we have one of these categories selected. We could also limit our buttons to certain documents, like for example project or family file, and this might be useful if you create a lot of tools for your family and project in one toolbar. Then we can verify that certain view types are open to activate the button. Everything should be clear here, but note that view plan represents floor, ceiling, structural, and area plans all together. Let's make an example for plans and legend views. And this is how it's gonna look. And obviously, we can combine multiple different criteria together. If you scroll through advanced context, you'll see a bunch of different examples, but they are made for bundle.yaml file. So let's create it and copy some example. Find where your Python script is located, and then we're going to create bundle.yaml file in there. Inside, we could write all of our meta tags here, but I will just place the context here, and then we don't need to write anything in Python file for the context. I'm not a big fan of using these bundle files, so I'll just remove it from my example. Then next, let's cover imports. I'll start by creating these code blocks to visually separate my code. I use the plugin Piglet in PyCharm, and if you want to get it, we can go to Settings, then select Plugins, then make sure you are in Marketplace, and then look for Piglet plugin. And there's going to be install button somewhere right here. And then if you want to convert some text into ASCII art, we're going to select some text, then we're going to hold Alt and click on Insert, and we're going to select this plugin. In here you can experiment and find another font, but I always use Kelvin S font. And then just click here, and now we converted this text into this special ASCII art. Now I will create code blocks for all of the sections of this template. We need to create variables, functions, classes, and lastly our main. In imports, we can include the most used packages. I'll add here some common ones like OS, sys, and datetime. Then we can import everything from Autodesk Revit DB and Autodesk Revit UI. And also, if you work with elements from other disciplines, we need to import it from DB and discipline module. Then let's add some comments and align them, and then we can continue. Cool thing about pyRevit that it has a bunch of different functions and classes that can be extremely useful for beginners. Let's import some of these modules as well. And lastly, I like to keep my imports for .NET list, because it's widely used in Revit API in different classes and methods. For this, we need to import CLR module, and then we're going to add reference to system module. And then we can import this list from system collection generic. And it's very easy to convert Python list to .NET list. We just need to use this class of list and then specify categories of elements inside of square brackets. And then we can either insert our Python list in parentheses, or we can add it one by one by using add method. Then let's move to variables. There are certain variables that we always need to use. Let's start by creating doc, UI doc, and app, which represent a document, UI document, and application. When we get these variables using this syntax, PyCharm will not know type of these variables, and therefore there is nothing in auto suggestions. There are only these features to turn the line into certain statements. But we can use a special Python syntax for type hinting of our variables. Then do the same for the UI document and application variables. And you can see that application is highlighted because this class is not imported yet, and it's located in Autodesk Revit Application Services. But I don't want to import it, so I'll just remove type hinting for the application. And now when we added this type hinting for the variables, we can try to use doc variable, and you can see that there are a lot of suggestions for properties and methods of this document. And you can easily find something that might be really useful. For example, like this active view property. This will return us currently open view in Revit UI. Also, it might be useful to get our associated level of active view, but this will only work for view plans, because other views don't have associated levels with them. Then I would also recommend you to get Revit version number from application. This might be useful if you have to write code for different Revit API versions. Then you can make if statements to check the Revit version. Lastly, I like to store different reports that my button create in the same folder where my code is located. So this line is going to return you an absolute path where your script file is located. Then we can write here our main global variables used for each individual script. Then here's a place to write our local functions and classes that are script specific. It's going to create a consistent structure in your code and make it easier for you to navigate. However, if you think that you're going to reuse any functions or classes, do not copy-paste your code over and over. Consider adding them to your custom library to reuse your code. I'll teach you how to create and manage your library in the next video. And lastly, our main section. This is going to be different for all the scripts, but when we want to make any changes in Revit project, we need to use transaction, which protects our project from unwanted changes. So it's worth defining it here if you are still a beginner. To create an instance of a transaction, we're going to provide a document and then name of the change. And then we need to start and commit it. And all the changes to the document should be executed in between these two statements. I'll cover transaction in a separate module, so don't worry about this. And lastly, we can always finish our scripts by making a print statement. This will notify user that something has happened. Otherwise, they might click on the button and feel like nothing has happened. So this template contains a lot of stuff, but oftentimes you'll need just simplified version of that, without any comments and only essential stuff. Let's create a second version of our template without all the extras and the comments. I'll just select this push button and click on Ctrl C and then select on this folder and Ctrl V. Then I'm going to rename it to pyRevit min, and that's where you can customize your template and leave only the things that you need 90% of the time. I'm going to start by removing comments and I will simplify this description. Then we don't need any extra meta tags in this template. And we can also clean up imports to only most essential modules. Then in variables, I would actually leave everything except for the path. They are also quite useful when you start coding. Then in main section, transaction is not necessary because you can see that it's quite easy to do it. And now this template is half the size of the original. And you can modify this over time to suit your own needs as you learn more about Revit API in this course. However, if you have something that is going to be reused in multiple scripts, it's worth adding it to the library to easily import it. And that's exactly what you're going to learn in the next video, where I will create a custom library and create a few functions in there so we can easily reuse them across our scripts. So I will see you there.